Welcome to the Future Worlds online event. Future Worlds is the on-campus startup accelerator at the University of Southampton. We exist to help aspiring founders change the world with their ideas. So today, it's a great privilege to have a pre-recorded panel discussion with three great founders sharing their experiences of the key things that made the biggest difference for them at the very start of their journey. So today, you're going to be learning about getting traction with customers. You're going to be learning about product market fit, about what things you need to do to really build credibility in your business. What are the things that you can do to really get yourself started? Sharing about getting out of the lab and talking to customers, talking to investors, finding out what will make a difference. And you'll be hearing about mistakes that people have made in the past and how they've overcome those. And hopefully that will give you loads of confidence, loads of practical insights on how you can affect your journey. So there's loads to look forward to in this event. Do remember you can engage in the online chat. So use the chat function. The Future Worlds team is there and the panel are there. So put your questions there online and we'll be trying to interact and discuss with you as much as possible. But for now, let's hear from the panel. So welcome everyone to the second Future Worlds online event. It's a real privilege today to have three fantastic founders with us who are going to be talking about the first steps on their journey. How did they get started? What were some of the challenges? What were some of the opportunities? When they look back on those first steps, what was it that really made a difference? So those are the kind of things you're going to learn today by listening to the experiences of these three guys. But before we get any further, I'm really keen that you all introduce yourselves. So James, perhaps introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ben. So I'm James. I'm from Kenya originally, and sort of came via South Africa. So here in the UK for the last 3 years. So lots of little steps. I started off my career in Kenya in banking, and then went into logistics, and then started to learn about business largely from a more established business group where there was a senior family member, and so I learned from him about coffee and about other businesses, and managed to do that reasonably well. And then over time got increasing control and leadership roles in it, and then to finally here where I'm actually in fintech, where I run an open banking platform and an FX platform.
Thanks, James. That's great. So Rob.
Hi everyone, so I'm Rob Maunder. I have two hats actually. So my first hat is as a professor in the Department of Electronics and Computer Science at the university, and that keeps me busy on 1 day a week. The rest of my time is spent at a spinout company called Accelercomm, which we started 4 years ago now. It's kept me very busy in all those years.
Thanks, Rob. And Shirin, finally.
Sure. I'm Shirin Dehghan. My background is technical, so I did electronics at Southampton University, and then another 10 years of technical career in the mobile communication industry. I saw an opportunity in the market in early 2000 to start my own software business, which I did. And after 10 years, I sold that. It was a successful exit, one of 3 big exits in Europe that year in 2013. And then I've morphed into chair positions and NED positions on boards of startups and also SMEs. And currently I'm chairwoman of Open Signal, and I was NED on Skimlinks, which we recently sold. I'm also NED on a business which I invested in called Neurophonics. They make equipment for stroke survivors to rehabilitate a lot faster. That's me. Thank you.
Fantastic. So thank you, all of you. So you've all got a whole breadth of experience from founding from within the university to founding across Africa and here in the UK, and you bring a whole range of different perspectives. So I'm really keen today that what we do is really delve into what were those first steps. What was it that really made a difference as you got started? So thinking right back to the start of your entrepreneurial journey, Shirin, let's start with you. Kind of what did those first steps look like as you launched?
So at the time, I was working for Vodafone, and 3G or third generation mobile networks were just getting through standardization. And I actually knew the problem, and I saw the problem coming because I was very familiar with the technology, and I was already working for one of the leading companies in the mobile communication industry. And knowing that this problem was going to exist in a couple of years, and of course I had the engineering background, knowing that I could solve that problem, it was almost a sort of aha moment for me. And I started really thinking about, okay, I know this is going to be a big problem. I know how to solve it. And then I got the itch to really start my own business. So that was kind of the kernel of the idea. And it took me a while to kind of get to a point where I eventually left my job at Vodafone, which was itself a very difficult decision. But really, I wanted to test it. I wanted to understand whether the hypothesis around that was going to resonate with other operators, because I knew obviously Vodafone was going to face it, but I made a guess that other operators were going to be in a similar position. So I actually went and pitched the idea to an operator in Portugal, just to make sure that nobody in the UK found out that I was moonlighting out there, to figure out whether this idea that I had actually had any kind of traction. And when essentially the guys in Portugal Telecom said, when can we do this trial with you, I knew that I had something, and I got that positive market reaction. Yes, it was one test, but it was something that I needed in order to kind of resign from my job. And that was that's what really made it. It was all about, am I really sure this is going to work? And I needed some proof points to make sure that it was going to work. And when I got that, then the whole sense of starting my own business was so overwhelming that I completely forego any negatives in terms of plummeting my income to zero, completely stopping a very successful career that I was building at Vodafone and in the industry. And I just threw it all away and then embarked on a journey of unknown.
So yeah, it was that big step into the unknown. And James, I know you had a similar kind of stepping out of a successful corporate career into the unknown. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's so I went to a sort of entrepreneurial college. So I mean, always from the get-go, when we graduated, we thought we'd go out and start your own, sort of found your own business. Every other sort of month, different founders would come to the college and tell us, how they'd done this and been there. And so we kind of left with a lot of huge amount of energy, actually almost too much energy. And then this was in the East Coast of America, a place called Babson. Then I moved back to Kenya, and that was, if you kind of think about it, was 92, and that was where there were old command economy. They still had controlled exchange rates. There was to import anything into the country, you had to go to the ministry and have a little license to allow you to import. And there was absolutely no jobs, 40% unemployment. So it was a very tough scenario. So in that scenario, I really didn't have anything I could actually do logically that kind of made sense. So I had to take a corporate job with Citibank, and it was everyone thought it was a really good job, but it was, it took all days of the week. And when I finally decided to leave it to try and work a bit more courageously with the marketplace in a logistics business, my whole family, everyone was just looking at me, thought I could just take leave of my senses. And there was this, great fear about, the unknown. And I didn't have all the things, and I couldn't actually tick all the boxes. The market wasn't so clear, it wasn't so stable. And so it was lots of missteps, lots of mistakes, and working from one company to the next. And I've had a bit of a different thing. Hasn't been one company that I've been involved in. It's been actually dozens, and in different scenarios and things, and lots which haven't gone well as well. But in the process, slowly getting to maturity. But that initial thought that, what could the worst thing happen? What's the absolute worst thing that could happen? And saying the worst thing has happened, and you're still alive, you're still breathing, and you can still wake up and do something else. It was just incredible. So that's why it makes the things that I do now seem. It just seems. Someone has asked me, how did you move to UK? And in 3 weeks, set up house, set up office, set up business, and get your kids into different school with no help, But you tend to be able to ride with it a little bit better.
And Rob, what did the experience look like for you? You were in academia at the time.
Yeah, I think my journey was quite gradual, actually. I had a very supportive employer. The university has a strong push on enterprise as an agenda, and so I was researching in telecoms, and I had a few ideas which I took to the university and suggested that we could patent them. And the university was supportive and paid for that and took that through the process, but gave me a gentle push in the direction of commercialization. And that led to various different bits of mentoring that I received. First from the University Research and Innovation Service, also from Set Squared, the iCure program we were enrolled onto, and that was very useful. We engaged with Future Worlds right at the start of Future Worlds, and Future Worlds introduced us to Shirin. And so it was with all that support, the iCure program as well, that we sort of developed the case for the spin out, identified what it is we wanted to do and how much funding we would need to do it. We got some funding, a grant, which funded the initial efforts and took us on a journey which ultimately led to the securing of an investment, an IP arrangement with the university as well, and the formation of the company properly. And that was quite a journey. It was protracted over a series of months, a lot of wrangling, which you will remember, but yeah, a lot to learn along the way, constantly outside the comfort zone. Yeah, that was the genesis really of the company, and now we're working on 5G chip design.
So you've come a long way since those early steps. What were some of the things what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome in those first few months, that first year as you were getting started, Rob?
I think the sort of work I was doing on a daily basis quite quickly changed from being very research-based into a wide variety of different things. We had a conversation going with the investors, and they gave us a list of things that they were looking for us to do in order for them to sign off on on an investment, and those included testimonials from customers or potential customers that we were speaking to. The iCure program had given us the opportunity to collect those, but then there was writing a business plan and numbers, lots of predictions of revenues and things like this, the sort of thing that I'd never studied at university. Even to this day, the mathematics behind shares and equities is still a mystery to me. But yeah, it was just that being stretched in all sorts of different directions, looking to learn new things, and to this day I'm learning new things every day as well.
And so I guess it's the why. Like, I'm looking at all three of you and really successful, been on these great journeys, and so it's easy looking back. There's always the kind of confirmation bias, isn't there, or the kind of success bias that great, it's worked out really well. But at the start of the journey, you didn't know whether it was going to work or not. Like, what was the why? What was the real push that made you think, yeah, it's worth taking this risk? Shirin, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it took a lot for me to really pluck up the courage and resign from my job and stop a very successful career to go into the unknown. And it was all about, for me, it was all about, am I solving a real problem here? If I was kind of given advice to a founder that's starting off and wondering whether they should set up their business, is really understand the problem you're solving. Talk to customers. Don't shy away. I think my technical background, and I think Rob is probably in the same boat as myself, is that we tend to like just building a piece of software and tinkering with things, whereas actually what you really need to understand is what problem actually people are having and what are the real issues that you're trying to solve out there. That for me, it was quite lucky because I was already working for a potential future customer, because I was already working in the industry for Vodafone, who subsequently never actually bought my product, but that's a different that's a different matter. But really, it was that. Also, the other thing that founders need to really focus on, other than really understanding the problem and making sure that the customers are what they're saying to customers resonates, is to think about, for example, do they have the right people around them? Do they have the right mentors? Do they have the right board members? So I know, for example, for me, very early on, I knew I didn't have any kind of commercial credibility, and I was looking for funding in the first 12 months, obviously, of that journey. And for me to get funding, it was not enough for me to say, hey guys, I've got a great idea. Can you give me hundreds of thousands of pounds? And it wasn't going to work. So I actually went through it the hard way. I had to build a prototype. I had to get to a very early version of the product. I had to build my pipeline, so a number of customers got interested. I had to build a very credible board, which included a former CTO of Vodafone UK. And so it was all of those little steps to show the outside world that this is a serious business. And although I may not have all the experience in the world of running a business or starting a business, I've got people who can help me. And I think those are the things that really I would draw out as sort of the things that I guess you really need to do in the first 12 months. Once you get yourself over the line, that this is a really good idea to do.
So any thoughts, maybe James, kind of how do you know that you're solving a good problem? How do you know that this is something that you can make money out of? How do you find that out for yourself before you go into one of your opportunities?
Yeah, I think, and sometimes, the environment kind of helps. I mean, I was just listening to about, getting a board and getting funding from the market. And I think for the most part of my career, there was times no funding was available. The only people willing to fund you is when you were successful and you were profitable, and that was usually on a debt basis, or for the private equity firms at a real discount to price. So there wasn't really that opportunity to get funding. So, but I think you go back to the big thing is kind of know yourself. I mean, and listening to Shirin and Rob, they had very clear senses of technically what they're good at, what they didn't have, and what they needed. And I think that's really, in essence, a founder must be very clear about what he comes in. Different founders come with different mixes of things. So I'm a bit of the chef. So I come in and I'll see a technical skill, I'll see a marketing skill, I'll see an opportunity, and I'll mesh it all together, and I'll find the background and the people who needed to make it work, and I'll try and put it together. And what really drives me, what excites me, what I kind of train from, is that commercial thing about solving problems and adding value to the market, whatever the problem is, whatever the industry it actually is in. And so it's and obviously starting off and just starting off your career, it is an open window. But the one thing that even if you don't have to work for someone, coming into it, I learned through working through people and getting feedback from my skills, is that you have to find a mentor, find someone to kind of get a sense of who you are and how you are in the marketplace, different from what you are in the classroom or different from what you are in the family. Those are very different things. And once you have a bit of attraction around that, then that's really at core what you grow and what you move with.
I think, James, maybe one of the things that I definitely just chatting to you is that obviously because you've run businesses before, you kind of know how to pull the pieces of puzzles together and kind of make this whole thing whole and try to solve a problem. I think when you are a founder who hasn't run a business before, that can be very overwhelming, because you don't know how to grab a marketing person, grab a salesperson. Like, for example, when I was hiring my first sales guy, I didn't know how to hire a salesperson. I had no clue what good looks like, So there is I think there is a different level of learning for someone who's going through that journey for the first time, than someone, for example, like yourself or me, who've kind of been through it and we know what good looks like. And this kind of comes back to the mentoring thing. God knows I've made loads of mistakes hiring people, and now I know who to look for and how to sort of seek out the best people and put together the best team. But that's not always obvious when you're first starting out. And the other thing I would say about founders who are starting out, I mean, I always had the opportunity, the focus for me was look, I'm starting this business and I'm going to sell it at one point. So I didn't start a business to pass it on to my children. I wanted to make a big success of the business, make it financially successful enterprise, and then sell it on. So right from the outset, I knew that's what it was going to be. Therefore, I didn't really mind sharing the pie. So for me, it wasn't about the percentage that I hold, it was about how big the pie can get. And for me, if the pie could get really, really huge, even if my percentage was small, because I had to bring people that knew how to do sales and knew how to do marketing and stuff that I didn't, it didn't matter to me, because if the pie was super large, then my percentage of it is going to be super large as well. So I think there's also these types of questions. Founders often get quite tied up about equity and dilution and that kind of thing. And so I know we didn't sort of speak about this earlier on when we were chatting, but I thought it's important to mention this, because don't get hung up on it. Just understand that it is about the size of the pie, and if you can make that pie massive, then it doesn't really matter.
It's like that classic dictum, isn't it? It's better to have a part of something big than all of something small, and if you can make it hugely successful, then everyone benefits, and the wider benefit is greater. I guess it begs this question. You talk about the kind of not knowing, and you didn't know how to hire a sales guy. James came with a lot of experience. For a lot of the people, whether they're researchers or students, academics on campus, it can look like this sea of unknown, and I don't know any of this stuff. This is completely out of my comfort zone. So what's the most important thing to start trying to tackle first, when you know there are 300 things, 3 million things you don't know? What are the first things to start working on? I mean, what's your perspective been, Rob, as you've gone on that journey yourself?
I think an important thing that we did early was speaking to investors, and that wasn't something that I knew to seek out and do. It was something that the university pushed upon me, but I'm very glad they did, because the investors told us what they'd like to see from us, and then that gave us a shopping list of things to try and tick off. And really key amongst those was commercial leadership, and so Shirin was really instrumental to the foundation of Accelercomm. Investors were really looking to see that we had a team, and that we, if I didn't know how to solve these things, then I was surrounded by people who did. That was really key. So talking to people, I think that's one of the most important things you can do in those early days.
Any thoughts, James?
Yeah, it's funny. I come from it from a slightly different, and I think it's when you come from a very volatile environment and very risky and very politically changing, is that you don't want other people's money. And the other thing is that you don't actually don't really talk about your business very much. So you have to just be very clear about what your commercial opportunity is, and you have your group of people, family and friends, who business-wise, who actually front most of the money, and you get at a very low cost base, you get to cash flow positive as soon as possible, and then it doesn't matter.
Actually, this is actually quite a good advice, because especially during tough times like the COVID-19, and look, prior to Corona hitting the world, everyone, at least the majority of the founders that I was talking to, were essentially, I would say, their heads were in the clouds. Like they wanted to raise 20 million. They were splashing money on, I met with one guy who had a private chef. He wasn't even making any revenue. And yeah, I know. I mean, and I'm not kidding. And it should remain nameless, the company that I'm talking about. But I think, during COVID-19, really reality has hit home to these business owners and founders, and because and also investors, to be fair, because investors were fueling this attitude as well, just throwing money at companies. And now people are having to really think about resilience, having to think about that actually I need to make money. And this comes back to what I was saying about starting off on a journey, is that look, go and talk to customers. Don't be scared. Actually try to make money. Today I'm mentoring a really nice lady as part of the Fellowship of Engineering, and she's brilliant. She's got very small amount of money because she's won this prize, but she's already out there trying to sell her idea and bits of code that she's developed, and actually projects, get paid projects. This is what I love. Forget investors, get customers to pay for it. It's the cheapest way of raising money. And on top of that, you actually get product market fit. And what does product market fit really means? I mean, we sort of coined this term and throw it around. To me, product market fit means when customers are beating down your door for your product. When they're literally ripping your door off and they can't get enough of your product, that's when you've got product market fit. Until that point, don't raise too much money. Don't put a lot of effort on scaling your sales and hiring a massive sales team, because you just don't have product market fit. You're just going to spend loads of money, dilute yourself down to nothing, and ultimately, that's not going to work. So really focus, I would say, on getting customer traction, getting customers to pay for the products that you're developing. Do it the hard way. It will pay off in the long run. So I completely agree with James. I know you said try to find points you disagree, but I'm like, oh, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Don't reveal all the secrets, Shirin. And that's a really interesting point. So what do you think it is that holds founders back from going and having those conversations, like whether it's with an investor or with a customer? What is it that holds people back from doing that? Like Rob, you were saying you were nervous. You had to be pushed into it.
Yeah, I think something you have to be careful of is the idea that you're going to stay in the lab until you've got the perfect product. And maybe this is a little bit of a counterpoint to what Shirin was just saying, but the only way you're going to get product market fit is if you know your market, and you're not going to know your market from sitting in your lab focused on your product. So you do have to put yourself out there in some way to really discover that. And it's the feedback. You have to listen to the customers and find out what it is they really want, and they're your best friends for guiding your next piece of work to do.
And so what's the best way of doing that? So if you've got a large corporate network, you've got a large career, maybe it's really easy. If you're in the university, maybe that's really difficult. How do you get those contacts with customers to find out whether you've got something they want? What kind of advice would you give to a founder on that?
My advice would be to do sales experiments. That would be my key advice. To actually go and talk to them and put slides together and try to sell to them. Sell a proposition, get feedback, and understand whether that proposition resonates. It's called sales experiments, so you have to keep doing it. And I would do it for a minimum of 10 if you're in a kind of a B2B market. If you're in B2C, put up a fake website, see how many clicks you get on this particular thing you're selling. Just get data. I think that's the thing that's really, really important. Just get out there, talk to customers, get data, build it, test it, learn it, and keep going around that loop until you get it right. That would be my one piece of advice.
James, you were going to...
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming at completely from external, but, coming into this marketplace, the thing that sort of shocked me the most is the amount of perfect documentation that people have for fundraising. I mean, I saw the most beautiful plans with, in London, and you can get, 20, 30 a day, because it really is like a deal capital of the world. So you get all these deals, but then no one with actual understanding of how to actually operate and move the business. And they're all talking at you. In fact, when I speak about things like people had open banking, someone showed me 7 or 8 different open banking funding schemes, and ask them who are their customers and where they are, and then it does nothing comes out of that. So I think the danger is to get away from the theoretical paper fundraising. That's the kind of route which is quite easy to do. And the thing is to try and get into trade associations, try to get people who are in the same business and who are actually practically in the same process of converting and selling. And even if you don't actually have the experience or the front of the experience, you find people who have done it and be able to talk to them and get feedback on your proposals or partnership with them as well, if you can't do it yourself. But as you said, selling, converting, cash flow is king.
It's that classic old dictum, coffee's for closers only. So get out there and close some deals, and then things start to happen. So looking back, I'm conscious of time. What were some of the mistakes maybe you'd look back and you say, oh, if I was doing it again, I would change that? What were some of the mistakes that you look back on? Rob, what?
I think for me, my transition into the company has been very gradual. It's only in the last year that I've become an employee of the company. The company's been going 4 years, and for a long time there were various different mechanisms that I was using for the company to buy time from the university for me. But in retrospect, I think I would have only benefited from diving in deeper sooner. I think I've been very comfortable in the way that the university supported me through that, but perhaps I should have taken on more risk myself and taken a bigger plunge earlier on.
Gone in earlier. And what's it look like for you to do that kind of parallel track of academic and founder? Because I guess a lot of people look at the success of Accelercomm and think, oh, I'd love to have some of that. What's it look like behind the scenes for you?
Well, it's a lot of work. Certainly, I'm kept very busy, but it has its rewards. Every day I'm doing something different. I'm learning something new. I'm talking to new people in industry. I'm talking to colleagues and students at the university, and that's all very rewarding. And I think it's that day-to-day experience that fuels me through all of it. And I think those rewards are important. You have to find a daily motivation. There's a number written on a piece of paper, which is hopefully some way out into my future, but that I can't rely on to motivate me to get me out of bed in the morning or send me to bed late at night after a long day of work.
And you are frequently on email very late at night. I've had the experience myself of seeing those quick responses at midnight from Rob, knowing he's on it. I think there's a machine-like quality to so many of the successful founders I see, that they've just got an incredible ability to get through a huge amount very quickly and take it in their stride, which I think really stands out. So James, looking at you, what are some of the mistakes that you've looked back on and think, okay, I'll do that differently?
Yeah, I mean, I've made so many mistakes. I mean, you tend to then sort of own them, and I mean, the mistakes are just legion. If I start on that, so I mean, but I mean, lots of them are kind of with related to trying to be taking shortcuts of greed, thinking that you can actually get past something quite quickly, but. And I made lots of investment mistakes, people mistakes, organization mistakes, attitude mistakes, and hopefully it's not really a question you make mistakes. Hopefully that you learn, because they're there to make you grow. That's what they're there for. The thing that I think that sort of helps me is that I love problems, and I love everything about what I'm doing. I love the difficulties, and I love trying to figure out how to make it work, and so that's what wakes me up in the morning. I mean, solving problems, hopefully adding value, and hopefully getting things forward a bit more. And when it does work, and then you have very happy clients, you have very happy staff members, and then it's circular. It's very beneficial.
And I think that's critical, isn't it? You've got to love the journey. You've got to enjoy the journey. Too many people just look at, I want to have that wonderful exit, but you've got to love the journey along the way, not just the upsides at the end, or potential upsides at the end.
It's about having passion for the problem that you're solving, right? I think that's the key thing, and it gets you through. If you're passionate about the company and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and there's nothing like the feeling of building an enterprise. It's all consuming, but it's also extremely rewarding.
Yeah, and the sort of the life cycle of it. And so there's the part where you have nothing, and and you're struggling, and it's just building, and finally it gets to a point whereby everything doesn't look so bad, and you can start to live a certain way, and you've got different people around you, and then you get this exit, and the joy is just a momentary joy, and then it doesn't mean anything after that. It's just a bank balance, and so obviously then you go and risk it all again and start over.
Is that why you go again and again?
Yeah, that's why you go again and again.
So let's wrap this up around now. But I just want to go to each of you and just ask, if there was one key bit of advice that you would give to someone who's right at the start of their own journey, or maybe just contemplating the start of their own journey, what would that be? Shirin, I'll start with you.
I would say really focus on product market fit very early in the journey. Try to really understand where you're adding value, why you're adding value, talk to your customers, build the product. In order to do that, and test it and go around that loop multiple times until you get it right. And only invest in scaling your company once you have product market fit. That would be my biggest single advice.
Right. James, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you've got to strip away the labels, business person, entrepreneur, founder, and get a sense of just the human being. I mean, what is that problem? What is that thing inside you which kind of excites you as you kind of put it around and as you talk about it with friends and family? The thing that as you speak, everyone starts wondering why you go on like it's a little bit of a sermon, and then and go with that. Start learning as much as you can about that. Learn from people who've done it before, and reach a stage whereby you have a mastery on it, and you can actually solve a problem and give something to the world. But it's that sense of have a knowledge of the subject matter and a passion, and then ignite it.
Yeah. Thanks, James. And Rob, finally.
I think individuals need to think about what their role in the company they're starting will be. On day one, they're the chairperson, the CEO, the CTO, the COO, they're everything. But they need to think carefully about what they want to be in a year's time. They can't still be all of those things, and then focus on building the team around them. It's really important, I think.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it's, if I'm wrapping that up, it's about finding fit, talking to customers, getting that product market fit early, really focus on that. Know yourself, from what you're saying, James, around your passion, and really get the expertise and focus on something that you really get excited by. And then I guess similar to that, the flip side of the coin from you, Rob, around getting team, knowing where you're going to fit and who you're going to need to work with and bring alongside you to really make it successful. James, Rob, Shirin, thank you all so much for joining us today. There's so much in there for people to benefit from. And I guess for me, what excites me, and looking around even just this room, it is the passion and the brilliance of founders that can start with nothing and then create something that goes on and has a huge impact and really does change the world. For me, it's that belief in the potential of people to go on that journey and make a difference that excites me about Future Worlds. It excites me about seeing people go on that journey. And of course, you don't know the answers at the start. You don't know what you don't know. It can look all so uncertain, and yet as you start on that journey, you can learn along the way, you find it out, and you can overcome those challenges. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. It's been fantastic to have you with us, and just look forward to you joining at the next event. All of the details will be shared and it'll be coming through soon. So thank you very much indeed. So what a great opportunity that was to hear from three incredible founders sharing their journey. I hope that you found it not only inspiring, but gave you some practical insights that you can put into practice as you start your own journey. If you want more of that, we've got another event coming up very soon. Go to futureworlds.com/next event to sign up there. All of the details are there. We're going to be looking at the founder's dilemma. What should you do? Should you go it alone? Should you build a team? If you're building a team, what should you be looking for? It's going to be a fantastic event, so make sure you don't miss out on that. But for now, just leaves it for me to say thank you for joining us today, and thank you particularly to James, to Rob, and to Shirin for sharing their time with us. Thank you very much.